This happened to me when I was 15. My dad ran a wrecker service for over-the-road truckers. Late one night, we got a call that a truck had run off the road and struck a tree 20 miles south of the town, so my dad and I fired up the wrecker and headed south. When we came on the scene, the truck and trailer had ran off the road to the right and smacked a tree head-on. This was back in the day when there were cab-over semi-trucks, or the ones without noses, where the engine is under the cab. Surprisingly, the truck was still running at idle, the door was closed, but there was no driver seen from the driver's window. The front driver's windshield was busted out and there was a large hole in the middle. The trailer the driver was hauling was loaded with 1/4-inch sheet steel. Of course it is pitch dark and you can't really see things that well when we first got there. Our impression was the driver smacked a tree, hit his head on the windshield and was already getting treatment somewhere. So my dad set up the wrecker to hook onto the trailer and he wanted me to open the cab in order to release the brakes. When I opened the door to the truck, I saw something that would scar me for the rest of my life. The driver's lower half of his body was sitting in the driver's seat, and a single sheet of steel broke free and cut through the cab, cutting the driver clean in half. Needless to say, this traumatized me, and later that night we found the upper half of his body about 40 feet from the truck in a cornfield. The strange thing was that the driver was still grabbing the upper part of the steering wheel. It looked like he was frozen in time and still driving the truck. Needless to say, this whole encounter is something that lives in my memory to this day. This is one of the many experiences I had growing up in a wrecker service family. This happened to me after a long haul through the beautiful city of Melbourne. I pulled off for the night in a quiet stretch of the town. Being outside the city limits, I was surprised at the thick darkness that followed after flipping off my rig's lights for the evening. With no streetlights, cars, or trucks nearby, it seemed like the pitch black bled into the night sky. I felt lonely, but was accustomed to the solitude of this profession. After my evening ritual of locking the doors, closing the curtains, and checking my surroundings for any potential concerns, I made my way to bed. I rolled from side to side for several minutes, perplexed by the cold I felt despite the summer season. The chill made it difficult to sleep, and I became lost in thought concerning the events of the next day. Suddenly, the cabin light flooded the space in a pale yellow light. Startled, I sat upright to discover that the passenger side door of my rig was open ever so slightly. Fear shot through me as my mind raced. There was no way the door was faulty. The truck was new and in pristine condition. Grabbing a pole used for tightening my straps, I prepared to meet the invader but didn't move. Seconds seemed like hours as a delicate silence settled over the truck. Mustering my courage, I rose from the bed, walked around the perimeter of the truck, and discovered no sign of anything. No footprints, no nearby homes, no vehicles, just me and the truck. After uneasily returning to my bed, I fell into an undisturbed sleep. The next day, I woke up, stretched, and parted the curtains. Gazing out of my window into daylight, I froze. Immediately adjacent to my truck was an isolated cemetery. Without bothering to put on my shoes or pants, I started the truck, stepped on the grass, and sped away from that lonely spot. I was driving through Montana headed east, and my company had miscalculated my mileage, so I requested an emergency fuel up. I got a response with the nearest gas station that I could get approved at. It wasn't exactly close, so I turned off the main highway and headed towards my stop. It's pitch black, there's no moon, no city light, and I haven't seen any headlights for about an hour. I'm cruising down the highway and I see something in the middle of the road, so I slow down naturally as I approach it. When I come to pass it, I get one good glance at it and slam on my brakes as I pass right in the middle of the highway. All I could think was, what did I just see? So I back up, looking in my mirror until I see its red silhouette in my brake lights. I pull my brakes, put on my jacket, and grab my flashlight and hop out. I walk to the back of my trailer and put my light on it, and there it was, a headless, skinless, mangled corpse. I froze and my jaw dropped. I didn't know what I was looking at. I just stood there in the middle of the highway. The only sound is the hum of my truck 50 feet back. There was no fur, no clothing, just a fully intact rib cage with a mess of other miscellaneous bones attached by ligaments. I debated calling the police as the rib cage looked big enough for someone my size, but I looked at my phone and had zero cell service. The nearest town was over 50 miles out. When I put my phone away, I flashed my light around and standing at the end of the road were a handful of coyotes staring at me. Then they started coming through the fence and trotting my direction. I figured this is the part where I get back in the truck before I get into a situation, so I did and continued on my way. I still to this day do not know if that was human or not. Whatever it was and whatever had happened, I was almost a witness of. I convinced myself that it was more likely a deer and was hit by another truck like my own at highway speeds. That would definitely do significant damage, but I've never seen roadkill missing its flesh before like that.